Get up.
So, have y'all ever had somebody tell you that you couldn't do something because of the fact maybe you didn't fit that stereotype or didn't fit that degree or something like that? So, most people have. Well, the reason I asked that question is because of the fact, looking at Steve Jobs in his earlier career, you would not see that he would get to where he was. All during high school and middle school, he always struggled real bad. He, never did his homework. His teachers always had to bribe him to do his homework. Well, that, transitioned into college years, and whenever he went to college, he went for about 6 months, and then he ended up dropping out. He took a few small classes here and there. Well, he went from dropping out in college to working for a company being a game designer. And he turns around and he got a little bored with that job. Well, he decided he'd go to India. He wanted to work on his Zen and stuff like that. Well, he went there, and he then started messing around with psychedelic drugs and experimenting with them. Well, he went from that to coming back to America, and him and a high school buddy of his, they decided that they wanted to start a computer company. Well, they started in his parents' garage from nothing. He sold his car so that he could start this dream. Well, in his first computer design, they ended up making about $774,000 on his first computer design. Well, that transitioned into making the next design and the next design and making a pretty wealthy company. Well, they also ended up bringing in John Scully from Pepsi, who was a marketing expert. So he came in and he was the CEO of Apple. And whenever that happened, they turned around and realized that they kind of felt like Steve Jobs was holding them back from being able to go farther on. So they kind of moved him to the back of the ladder, didn't give him a title, didn't give him anything. He couldn't really do anything. So he had enough of it, and he left Apple. And from there, he went and started another company called Next. And that company ended up being a pretty big company too. And Apple actually bought Next out. And he also invested in another company, in Pixar. And from that, he ended up coming back to Apple and being the CEO of Apple again. And he kind of reinvented Apple and changed it into something completely different than what it had been. And then he turned around and went and kept making a bunch of good products, leading them farther and farther along, making them one of the biggest companies they were. And from that, Apple is a massive company now. They make tons of money every year. Well, in 2003, Steve Jobs ended up getting cancer, pancreatic cancer. Well, for about a year there, he struggled with his health real hard. And then he turned around in 2004, he got a lot better, a lot healthier person. Well, he went on and was healthy for a few years in there, then ended up with pancreatic cancer again. And that time it was about a 3-year battle, and it was just a decline the whole time. And he ended up dying because of that. But on the flip side of that, a lot of business students end up studying him because of the fact he took something that most people wouldn't see as him being real creative, real good at doing stuff like that, because he failed all through school, didn't do real good. And it was more because he didn't want to do it than it was that he couldn't have done it. He didn't want to apply himself to that. He wanted to apply himself to something different. And I think that once he finally found that one thing he liked, he really did good in it and excelled in it. And that's where he made a very wealthy company out of it. Well, so to reiterate all that, Steve Jobs started from next to nothing, having to sell his car to start this dream that he had. And from that, he moved around a little bit in there and kind of failed in between, but he always stayed fairly on track and made Apple a great company it was today. And it probably wouldn't be where it was today if it wasn't for him. So, my two sources I got was Steve Jobs' biography at biography.com and Leadership Results of Steve Jobs on Harding Business Review.